This is Studio 809.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I'm your host, Hiking Bob Falcone. Check me out on my website, hikingbob.com. Links to everything is right there. I won't bore you with telling you where this is and that is. Just hikingbob.com. You can find a link there. Also, help support this podcast with Patreon, patreon.com/hikingbob, and help support the podcast. And we've just changed the reward system for that, so we give a little something special for the people who support the podcast. We do that all right there on Patreon, so check that out. Today, I have another special guest. We've had a bunch of them in the last couple of weeks. It is Todd Marts, who heads up the El Paso County Parks Department. And Todd, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Bob. Looking forward to it. Enjoy it every year.
You've been on for a couple of times, so this is nothing new for you. But every year I like to get the heads of the local parks departments together and talk about what were the significant things that your department did in 2025. Now, talk about last year, what's coming ahead in 26. And then we have some exciting news about what you're going to be doing here really soon, not too long after this podcast. But tell us, how did things go? What were the big significant things with El Paso County Parks in 2025?
We had a good year, and it was certainly a year that we started many projects and started some funding projects, and so we're ready to roll for a lot of these in 26 now. But we kicked off a couple of things. One is the Paint Mines Master Plan was completed, and so now we really have a vision of where we're going to go from here. And we did some of the work last year, and we'll do even more coming up in 26. We also kicked off a project in Fox Run Regional Park, which was a huge deal, and that was the Pond gazebo. The gazebo was falling apart, very popular gazebo, lots of weddings there.
Kind of sinking into the pond.
And it was sinking, yeah. It was a neat island. It's been there for, decades. And so, but it was time to kind of refurbish that. And those ponds are not only scenic and beautiful, they're also how we irrigate our fields. And so it's important that we get that fixed. It's not leaking and we can keep that water and maintain it. And so that project was kicked off last year, but it'll continue on to this year.
Okay. How long into 26 will that project go?
We're hoping for June. I think we might miss the June wedding season, but we'll be ready for the 27 for sure and any fall weddings.
There you go. Great. The Paint Mines Master Plan.
Yeah.
Insanely popular place. There have been challenges there, as we all know, with people scrambling on the sandstone. Please don't do that. It's very fragile. You've been working hard over the last several years to kind of control that a little bit. You have people out there now who are, I guess they're staff people or are they volunteers?
Staff.
They're staff people out there kind of working with the visitors. There's some fencing. That's been a bit of controversy. I was out there. It's very low fencing. It's not, it's enough to keep you out of there. It's not enough to get in the way of your nice pictures or anything. What is going to change with this master plan out there?
So I think it's thinking those things through and globally, and there's a balance. There's a balance between protection and also the enjoyment for the visitors, and so we need to make sure that people understand where they should go and where they shouldn't go. We also want them to understand the sensitivity of the formations, and so more interpretation, more dissemination of that information, so they know why we're doing what we're doing. We're not just trying to control use. We're trying to protect. And so the staff are out there, they're doing that during peak season. And the master plan calls for some fencing, some taller fencing, and then some very short fencing. And we actually went in last year and took some of the fencing and made it a little bit lower due to some concerns. And now you'll see in 26, you'll see some really low knee height, just to let people know where the trails are. You can't put a boardwalk out there because of the drainage and all the water. And so this is the way for us to just let everybody know, here's where we need you to stay. And they can still experience the formations and walk through them. There's a whole bunch of additional improvements, and depending on funding on how that comes in, we have funding for the fencing and the trail work in 26. And if there's additional funding that comes available, the department will be able to do some neat things. There's parking lot improvements. We need to make sure that people are able to park safely. There's actually a long-term plan for a visitor center, and that came out in the master plan, and that would be a great addition to the eastern El Paso County, and also kind of formalize the staff that are going to be at the paint mines.
Okay. Speaking of, I'm going to try. Well, let me touch base with the fencing thing. There's a lot of concerns from photographers who go out there. It's a beautiful spot in the summer at night for Milky Way photography. You have this really short window every month to do it, and I know there's almost a competition amongst the photographers who's going to get the permit to go out there for that night. There was some concern from some of them about when the fencing was proposed, about that getting in the way of the pictures. And I've been out there at night. I was going out there with a group that had a permit a couple years back, before the fencing went in, that the fencing was going to get in the way of the pictures and stuff like that. Have you heard back from them? Has that actually been a problem, or, has they been able to work around it?
So we did hear from them before we put the fencing in, and so we really listened to what they were saying. We adapted and modified a little bit, and the fencing that we have in right now, we have not received complaints about it so far. So we recognize the value of the photography, especially the nighttime, and having a fence in the way is not good. And I think it's a balance again with the good photos, and also protecting the resources is the reason why you want to take the photos.
Right.
And so we need to make sure that those formations are there, so you want to continue to take pictures.
And the photographers always, that I know who go out there, are always very cognizant of that, but they want to stay in the right place, but they didn't want those fences in the way.
Yep.
When I was out there this past summer, from friends of mine were visiting from the East Coast, had never seen anything like that. We went out there in the middle of the week, so there was not a lot of people out there. They were awestruck by how beautiful it was. So they got a lot of kudos to you in the department for how beautiful that place was, and we're shocked that it's a county park, not belonging to a higher up entity. But they were, and I looked at that fencing and I said, I think I could probably shoot around most of this. I was looking at the angles and stuff, but it's good to know that obviously you guys worked with them and made sure they can go out there, because those permits are not inexpensive to be able to go out there, and they're fine with that too, but they want to be able to do their thing while they're out there.
And if somebody encounters some concerns, let us know. I mean, if they don't tell us, we won't know about it. Sure. And so we will take all of that input and continue to evaluate. It's not a one and done. We're going to just put the fence up and then we're finished. Right. We recognize there might be some areas we might need to add fencing. There might be areas that it's not really needed. And so, come to us and let us know. Excellent.
You mentioned Visitor Center. Let's take a tour back in time a little bit. There was a plan in motion to put a visitor center in Fox Run Park. That had been going on, way back when I was on the county parks board. I don't know how long that's been,
right.
10 years ago now. I was on the board when that location was settled, and then I was term limited out before things moved forward. This past year you had to kind of put that on hold. You want to kind of tell us what happened with that?
Yeah. So, it started actually a couple decades ago, is when we recognized the interest in the community to have a nature center up north. And so that is where it started, and it's still there. Very much an interest, very much some funders that are supportive of it. It will continue to be in our park master plan, but it was not the time to really move forward in 26. And we recognize that with the financial realities that we're all in right now and the economy, this was not the time for us to put all of our funding into that nature center, whereas we've got other projects that need it. And so it's on pause. It's not stopped. It's not canceled. There still will be a movement forward, and I think some of the funds that were raised through the nonprofit will remain there and will be growing interest. And so when the team is ready to take it up again and the community is ready, it will come back.
So that nature center was a pretty grand plan. Beautiful. I've seen the plans. Beautiful place. I think it fit into the park really well. I think it was really gorgeous. How do I want to word this? Well, let me take a step. Let me ask you this question.
Sure.
Percentage-wise, when you put this on pause, how far into funding the nature center were you? Were you halfway there?
We were over half.
3/4 of the way there.
Yeah.
Right.
But with the economy the way it was, and with the building materials the way they were, and exponentially growing as the months went on in 25, we recognized that even the dollar amount that we were looking at was going to move. And so with the final design, we were well above where we initially had thought. And so, kind of anticipating what your question might be. Do we look at modifying that design? Absolutely. We've paid for the design. It's in place. All of the permits are there, and so we know that what we have proposed is doable, and it's something that could easily be modified, and it could be completely different, or might be a slight modification, might be phased approach. You might look at just doing one part of it and then adding things as they come. And there was a lot of concern of the impact of the park, and that is something that we took very seriously. Again, we didn't just say, oh, we hear you. We said, we hear you, and here's what we're going to do to address that. And so we shrunk the footprint, we lowered the height of the tower, we shortened the length of the canopy walk, we really did. They mapped out every tree in that area and made sure that we were avoiding every tree that we could, and it was going to fit within the forested area. So if you went 50 yards away from it, you wouldn't even see it. And so we heard that, and so we definitely addressed that. And when it is picked up again, I think that you need to look at it again, from a global perspective, and step back and say, okay, here's what we have. What should we do moving forward?
I actually hope you don't change the design much. I love the design.
Yeah.
Please don't change the design. I think it's beautiful. It fits in there. It's very unique. I think it'd make a really great park. So if you do go forward, the master plan calls for a visitor center and paint mines. I'm guessing, and I'm just guessing here, I haven't seen any of this stuff, that it's probably going to be a smaller, probably not as grand as the one that you're planning for, Black Forest or Fox Run.
Very small, very modest. It'll be very low, fit into the prairie, fit in the plains, and it will not be a nature center. It'll be more of a visitor center experience. So you'll get information. You'll be able to learn a little bit in there too. There'll be bathrooms. For safety reasons, it's nice to have a facility around. But it will not be a nature center, so that's not the way it's designed.
So not anything on the way of Bear Creek or Fountain Creek or anything of those bigger places?
Not to start, yeah. I think initially it will be something smaller, and then it could grow down the road. I've been at Bear Creek Nature Center for quite a while, and I've seen the growth over the years, and started out very small as a solar trail center, and it ended up being a pretty big building. And so I think that could happen with any of our facilities.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about Bear Creek coming up here.
Yeah.
The part of paint mines that people are used to now is only one part of the property that the county actually owns. There's actually property on the other side. Does the master plan address the property on the other side of the road that so far is not open to the public?
It does, and it is designed in the short term, being 5 years, to not be open to the public. And so we're going to keep that preserved. The formations on that side are much smaller and much more delicate, and they're not as people are not going to be as enticed to go over there as they are where we already have trails. And so I think we solve how we do this side of the park, and then future you can look at in park master plans. You can look at, should we open or should we expand? And
when you look at the layout of the paint mines park, the formations are only really a small section of it on the south end. There's a lot of really great hiking trails that go on the north end. A lot of people just don't see that. Everybody gravitates towards the formations, understandably so. Yeah, that is the main attraction there. But I've hiked the other trails there, and there's a lot more to the park than I think people realize there is there.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think we take some of us take for granted the prairie ecosystem, and the shortgrass prairie is beautiful and has incredible diversity if you just look for it. And so, for people that are looking for a variety of experiences, it's a great place to see that, and then go into the paint mines.
So, what other great things did you guys do last year? We kind of focused on a couple small things. I shouldn't say small things, a couple of things there. But what other great stuff did you guys do last year?
Sure. So we also did. It's not glamorous, but it was really important, and that was some flood repair damage from previous floods. And so down at Willow Springs Ponds, when you go down there, you'll see some of the repairs, and along Fountain Creek. It was expensive, and it was something that we really needed to do because it was separating Fountain Creek from the Willow Spring Ponds, and Willow Spring Ponds from a irrigation ditch that's on the other side. And they did a wonderful job. It's much more accessible now for all abilities, and it's going to hold up a lot better over the next couple of years with any water.
It seems that Mother Nature has a thing about the bridges you've put in and some of the infrastructure repairs, because Mother Nature every couple of years wants to come with a storm and flood the Fountain Creek and take them out on you. It seems like
it does.
Mother Nature has a thing there about that.
It does, and that's the hard part, is that you can think you have it solved, but with water, it has its mind of its own and a power of its own, and so you can do your best. And I think this project was very well thought out, has great footings, so I'm optimistic it's going to be there for quite a while.
How are things at the two nature centers this year? Like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about Bear Creek coming up, but we can talk about what happened there and Fountain Creek. You guys do a lot of really great programs for people at both parks, for kids and adults and all manner of activities. How do things go at both of those this year?
I think that's a great thing to bring up, Bob. And we focus so much, and I focus so much of my time and energy on Fox Run Nature Center, but recognizing that we have two nationally recognized nature centers that are thriving, and people love those nature centers. And so both of them, great year, great success, set records with some of their environmental education programming that they did. And schools have always known about them, but I think the word is spread and it's getting wider now. And so schools that are even on the outskirts of El Paso County are starting to visit the nature centers. In addition to that, they've been successful at special events. The connection that Fountain Creek Nature Center has to the community down there and the military. You go to some of their events, and up to half of the people that are attending those events are young military families, and so they're not sure about El Paso County yet, but they get to come and enjoy the Nature Center and get used to that, and the staff and volunteers there make them feel welcome and really integrate them into our community.
And it's right across the highway from Fort Carson.
It is, yeah.
The Terrain Hopper program over at Bear Creek has been a model for, as you know, so many other parks in this region, and I think far beyond that. I mean, I know when I volunteer at Cheyenne Mountain State Park, we bought terrain hoppers because of the experience you guys had with them and your recommendation, your staff coming over and showing them to us. And I know other parks, if you looked at those, they may have gone with that or they may have gone with another device, but they looked at that as a model, how to manage it. How is that program progressing? How's that looking?
It's thriving too, and so some of the staff that run it are now going throughout Colorado, but even at national conferences and presenting how we got it started, how it works, and giving them some of the challenges we had, and hopefully helping them get a good start to it. We did receive another grant, and so now we have a third train hopper, and we'll have that at Fox Run Regional Park. It's already on site, and we hope to get it up and running for this season, and people can book that one just like they do the Bear Creek and Fountain Creek ones and get out on the trails at Fox Run.
And almost all the trails at Fox Run would be really suitable for that. They're mostly wide and nothing real technical over there, so that'd be a lot of fun for that park. I think that'd be a great addition to that park. Black Forest Park, still in a long-term recovery mode from the Black Forest fire years ago now. How many years has that been? 10 years or more? Still in a recovery mode from that. Anything changing there, or are you just letting Mother Nature do its thing and let it grow back?
So we're still doing some vegetation things there, and definitely some erosion issues have arisen. So we're addressing those as they come up. We did just redo the pickleball and tennis court there and sports court, and so that's all brand new, and so people are able to use that. The soccer field is still thriving, and so people are loving that. But it takes time for the forest to come back, and I think one of the interesting things for people that are residents is to visit it every once in a while, just to see that change. I saw it in Yellowstone after the fires, and that is an experience of itself that you don't want to ask for it. You don't want that to happen. But when it does, what an opportunity for us to see how Mother Nature regrows and how it will come back in just takes time.
And it kind of gives you the chance to kind of re-envision the park. Like now we're starting off with a really clean slate. There's nothing here. What do we want to do with this park and stuff? Exactly,
Bob. And now we have the opportunity we know how to manage it better. So it will be a forest that will grow, and it'll be grown sustainably and it's not going to resist fire, but it'll be much better maintained to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand.
Right. Hopefully we don't have one of those anytime, period. What other stuff did you guys do last year?
So a lot of the other projects were smaller, but just as important, improvements to bathrooms. We had bathrooms that were not always pleasant to go into. And so for the people that are going in them now, they're just like, well, this is just a bathroom. But the people that were going in there a couple years ago, they will notice and they'll say, you know what, this is really good. So we did some of that, did some playground replacements. One of them was down south at a park that, we don't often talk about, but it's a great neighborhood park and people can come in, Strathmore, and they can come in and the neighbors really love it. So those are smaller projects, but definitely well loved, and we needed to get to that stuff too.
Let's talk a little bit about the makeup of the park system. Colorado Springs Park Department, which surrounds you guys, has a bazillion parks. They have big parks, little parks, pocket parks, neighborhood parks. That's not so much something that your department does. I mean, you have a few, we'll talk about that, like the one you just talked about,
right.
But they're you inherited those. So what is the El Paso County's philosophy on a park system as opposed to like Colorado Springs and other cities would be? How do you decide what parks to build and how many parks to have, and how do you do that? It's
not simple, but it really is laid out well. And in the 70s, when this department was formed, they did go into the small neighborhood kind of parks, a couple acre parks, and they realized quickly that the Colorado Springs and the other cities and towns were going to do that, and they do it well. And so we became a regional park system in the early 80s. And so most of our parks are going to be regional in nature. Large acreages, very multi-purpose. They'll have natural areas. They'll have play fields. And so that likely will be the future of El Paso County parks too. There's still some areas, out east that probably is going to grow, and we could see some more of those regional parks. But something that we don't often discuss, and that is, all the other areas that are growing right now. El Paso County might not be putting a park in there. However, those developers are putting parks in. And so this is the way that a county that doesn't have a lot of funding to support those additional parks, that's how we can do that. And so when a developer wants to build, they can propose a park in that area. We give them the fees back in lieu of the land, and then they will use that to build a park. And so when you go out to these new developments, that's what you're seeing. And really, it's a good way to do it, because then those neighbors and that neighborhood group is the ones that are vested in that park. They're the ones that are going to want to maintain it and take care of it too.
And I imagine just the sheer size of El Paso County. El Paso County is huge. Trying to manage what could easily be a few hundred little parks in this huge county would be pretty difficult to do without an exorbitant increase in funding, manpower, trucks, and whatever else you need to do all that kind of stuff.
You bet.
So it would seem that it's a little easier to just take care of a handful of big parks than a big pile of little parks.
If your budget is not growing significantly, that's the way you can do it. And I think it's a way to do it wisely, and it really has worked. We don't list all the parks that were started every year, but there's multiple parks started every year in these developments, and they need them in these neighborhoods. And that's something that we evaluate, how big is the neighborhood, how many people are going to live there, and then we look at how much open space and park property that should be there.
When you do those projects, you work with a developer to do those projects. Are there parameters that they have to meet to satisfy the county as to what kind of park they build for their community?
Absolutely. And so anytime we get involved with waiving the fees or doing that, they need to make sure it's open to the public. And so that is something that up front, it might be in that neighborhood, but anyone in the area in El Paso County can go and use that park. The other thing is they need to fulfill what they propose to us. And so they'll give us drawings and material and equipment that are going to be in that park. And then we follow up to make sure that's what's really there. And so we just started a new program in 25, and that is a regional trail system. So now the developers can not just put in a park, but they can put in a regional trail, and we can also waive the fees for that.
The idea eventually to connect all those?
Yep.
Or
We're seeing some of those going in up north.
one park I just thought of that we haven't mentioned is Falcon Regional Park. Being built in stages.
Mm-hmm.
What's the latest on that one?
Still doing well. So they did just put the road through the park, and so now there's a little more access on the north side. But the dog park is there. The fields that are there are being well loved, and there's a couple little leagues that are going to be using them in 2026. And we are looking at future funding to build the rest of the phases out.
Cane Ranch Regional Park, way on the south side of the county.
Yeah.
We're hitting all points of the county.
You are, yeah.
Is there any plan to do much more with that? I mean, you got a nice parking area in there. It's gated, bathroom facilities in there, some pretty simple trails in there. It's just it's a beautiful open space. Yeah. Is there any plan to do anything more infrastructure-wise or anything with that one?
The master plan doesn't call for a lot, and so we did do a master plan for that. And yes, it'll be trails. Potentially more trails could go in there down the road, but there's a conservation easement, and so we want to make sure it's going wisely. And you're right, it's not going to be a regional park with playgrounds and soccer fields.
Okay. So that's pretty much going to stay. If people are familiar with Cane Ranch, and you haven't been down there, I encourage you to go down there and visit. It's a beautiful spot. Pretty much going to stay the way that one is.
It is, for the short term, for sure.
Cool. What other great things do you guys do at 25?
You know, I think just some internal things we've been working on, and that is our strategic plan and making sure that we're aligning with the county. And also, I brought this up probably the last couple of years with you, and that is our asset management plan. And so we need to know what we have, we need to know the condition that it's in, and then we need to make sure that we're addressing those things with the finances that we have wisely. And so we've kicked off a mass asset management inventory, and that will be it's already started. It should be done in 26. And then in future years, our budgeting will be focused in on that. And so instead of us addressing things as they pop up and their problems, we hope to be addressing them beforehand to make sure that we're taking care of the parks.
It helps to know what you have. It helps to make things easier to do. What's coming up for 26?
So I think that's one of the big ones, and something I'm really proud of, and it's kind of a full circle for me. And you know, back in the days, I grew up in Colorado Springs, and I used to go over to the tennis courts in Bear Creek and play tennis. And if you've been over there recently, we've got one side of excellent pickleball courts, and the other side is pretty run down, and actually a couple courts aren't even usable. So we've secured funding to put in 2 new tennis courts and new pickleball courts there. In addition to that, we thought, you know, that whole side of Bear Creek Regional Park could use some work, and so we're going to look at doing a new archery range, which is one of those niche things that not a lot of park departments do, but we know that it's popular here, and so we're gonna restore, rebuild the archery range, and then some additional parking in that area. Pickleball is not a trend; it's here to stay, and so we're going to add some pickleball courts. And there's a local pickleball group that's supporting us in that too, and so that is going to be our big project. In addition to finishing up some of the projects that we kicked off in 25.
When I talked to Britt Haley, who just left as the director of the City Parks Department, the city of Colorado Springs was faced with significant budget issues, $30 million shortfall, probably looking at something, who knows what this year. It's way too early in January. It's too early to tell. Her department had to take some pretty significant cuts, layoffs, unfortunately, very difficult choices to make. She had hoped that, you know, it wasn't going to impact the user experience very much. El Paso County, on the other hand, seemed to be doing a whole lot better. No significant cuts to anything. No manpower cuts or anything like that. Seem to be doing a little bit better. I don't know how long if that's sustainable in the coming years. Hopefully the economy gets better and nobody's affected.
Sure.
How did your department do with this 26 budget?
You know, we did well. And so that's something that very proud of El Paso County and how they've managed their resources and built up an emergency fund that for things like when the flooding happened, there was money available to do that. And we also grow wisely. And so although, you know, from a project standpoint, you know, we're always wanting more money to do more projects. But when things like this happen, you recognize that, us holding back and being wise on what projects we select gives us the opportunity to, we don't have to do any layoffs. And our budget increased a little bit this year instead of going down. And so, but we did pull back too. I mean, you didn't just hear a big long list of projects we're doing in 26. Fox Run Nature Center is on a pause. And so we are handpicking some of the most important projects we need to do in 26, and we are going to keep plugging along. So very, very proud of El Paso County and what we've done.
Not to get into the weeds too much of this, but I think people are interested in how this works. Colorado Springs seems to be more heavily reliant on sales tax revenue, 67% of its budget, as opposed to El Paso County, not so much. Do you think that's what's really making the difference here, more property tax based and more stable over the long term?
Definitely a factor. We also rely pretty much on sales tax too, and so I think it's part of that, and partly just the financial decisions the county's made over the last 5 to 10 years.
Okay. And I'm not casting shade on anybody. There's always different philosophies, and obviously Colorado Springs has different things to deal with, and
yes.
500,000 people in the city.
And let me say right off the bat, the scale of what the Colorado Springs City Parks does is phenomenal.
Right.
And the scope of what they do is so much different than what we do at the county. And so credit to them and all of the projects they do and the maintenance that they do in their parks.
And they just released a whole bunch of projects they're still going to do this year, so
Yep.
they're doing great.
Yep.
We talked about Fox Run Park getting improvements. We talked about paint lines and the master plan, and there'll be some movement on that. What other things do you think we'll see in our parks this coming year?
Sure. So we're also looking at expanding the parking at Black Forest Section 16, which if you've been there, it's very popular. And parking
very small
is
parking.
very small parking. And so equestrians, we're looking at adding a section of parking lot for them. We're doing some work at Homestead on the trails, which some of it's due to flooding, some of it's just due to time. So we're going to do some trail work at Homestead, doing some work down at Fountain too. The trailhead on Hanson, we're going to start looking at that and start planning how we're going to fix that bridge. And then Willow Springs Ponds. If you live down there, the ponds are not always full. And so one of our ponds dries up. And so we're looking at, it's spring fed, so we don't have real control over the water, but we're looking at, do we have some control? Is there some way we could fill both ponds more consistently? So we're going to do some studies on that.
Maybe a little irrigation ditch that runs that way or something?
Water rights,
That's difficult.
It is. And water in Colorado is liquid gold, they say. So it's something that we might struggle with, but at least we need to do the research to find out.
And we are facing a drought so far that if anybody's out here this winter, we are way below on snowpack so far this winter. Hopefully we get a couple of blizzards between now and the next couple of months. Homestead Park.
Yeah.
One of my favorites. That little unsung park way up at the north central part of the county. I've always loved that park. Some of those trails there, and I'm not being critical, but they were built a long time ago, were kind of steep uphill, and when it rained, they became kind of a mess.
Yeah.
But then you got up on top there, that beautiful open space and those cliffs and a really pretty park. I just love that park. I haven't been out there. I need to go out there.
You need to go for a hike.
I need to go back out there.
Yeah.
So that project's ongoing. How long do you think? Are we looking at pretty quick? Not a very big park, so
it's not. But and we started the trail work last year, and so we're just going to continue it. Yeah, I think when you have a park that's built on a steep incline like that, you're going to have some erosion problems, and it's amazing how technology and the understanding of trail building has advanced since we first started doing those trails.
From the days, let's go straight up. Maybe that's not such a great idea.
And equestrians use those trails frequently, and so we know that we need to make them extra sturdy to make sure that they're able to handle the horses, and the horses want to walk on the trails. So
there's that little hill that's across kind of catty corner on the southeast corner of the park. I guess it's been included in the park, but it's not been accessible. Is that? I know that was included in the master plan. Are you gonna open that up to the public, or?
So
I'm trying to remember the name of that now.
Yeah, there's a couple of little parcels that are not connected to the park, and one of them's relatively big. And we're working on that. How do we get easements to make sure that the neighbors could use that property and then get into Homestead? They have some agreements amongst themselves, and that works well right now. But we want to kind of formalize some of that too. Okay. So
listeners out there, if you haven't been out to Homestead Park, my suggestion is go out there. hike up there, get up to the top, and get on those bluffs around sunset and look off toward the west. And it's a beautiful view from up there.
Very much so. Yeah.
On the south
It's a
end
great
there,
park.
It's a beautiful little park. But, you got to want it. It's a little ways up the road. Not terrible. It's all paved road. You don't have to worry too much about getting up there. But a beautiful little park. So with the budget being good, people can expect that when they go out to the parks, they're going to have pretty much the same experience they've been used to at the county parks?
Absolutely, yeah. And we're, the staff that maintain all the parks are doing a great job. They're fully staffed. One of the things that we've seen, or I've seen in the last 4 years as director, is a reduction in the turnover. And so we've got some very passionate teams that are out there that are maintaining things, and they're doing a great job. Yeah.
So El Paso County, historically, going way back, was not the place to go if you wanted a really great pay. But the county government has seemed to, in the last dozen years, recognize that that's not a good way to run government, that you need to compensate people so you don't have constant turnover. Constant turnover is not good for any government agency or a business, because then you're just constantly training people to leave and go somewhere else. Has that philosophy, is that what's been behind increasing the stability of your manpower in the department?
Absolutely, yeah. I've been here for a few decades, so I've seen some changes over the years, and the last 4 or 5 years has really been different. We've always, wanted to keep employees as high as possible, but there really has been a focus by county leadership, and have put a lot of effort and money into making sure that the employees feel rewarded and compensated for their work. So, yeah. So
the big news is you're retiring in a couple of weeks, I believe. Am I correct? It's really coming around the corner.
It is 4 weeks, end of February. I'm retiring, and talking about all these exciting things going on. I'm kind of like, well, maybe I shouldn't. No, I'm retiring.
There comes a time you just have to go.
Been here for
That's how I felt.
Been here for 31 years, and really have enjoyed my time and worked myself up from probably one of the lower paid positions as a naturalist at Bear Creek Nature Center, and ending my career as the director has been just a wonderful experience and a lifetime of experiences, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. But I do think it's time for me to step away, and for my own self, but also for the Parks Department. Change is a good thing. Sometimes it's hard, but I think El Paso County Parks, it's time to have a shift, and excited to see where they go. And I will be the first one to compliment them and to be using the trails. I'm going to stay in the area, and so looking forward to hiking and not being responsible, so I could just go and have fun.
You've been with the Park Department 31 years. You grew up here. What do you think is the biggest change you've seen in this department from when you started here 31 years ago to now, on the eve of your departure?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and a hard one, because the times are just different. I was telling people the other day, we had our holiday get together for all the department, and we had modest catering, but we had food brought in, and we did it at a carpeted facility. And back in my early days, they would clean out the shop and repaint the floor, and we'd set up folding tables, and we did a potluck out there. And so that was great. It was fun, different than it is now. And so I think people that worked back in the 80s and 90s, they were very passionate about what they were doing too. And so the time change has been different, but I think the recent 5 years has really made a difference in the atmosphere for the county parks. And the people that are here are enjoying what they're doing. They feel valued, and they're definitely passionate about what they're doing. So the other changes I've seen is, we used to build trails based on where people were walking already. Now we build trails on where it's going to make sense and they're going to be more sustainable. And so that is something, not that challenging, but a simple thing that we can really improve upon. The nature centers started out as everything was free. And now we realize that if you're going to do these extra services, there's going to be some kind of a fee for that. And so the nature centers now are raising hundreds of thousands of dollars. The county fair is something that used to be free, and now we charge for, and it's sustainable. And so that is something that it's been hard, hard to see that we had to charge for certain things, but it also puts value on those things, and it's helped us out quite a bit.
And it takes the onus off the taxpayer too. And it should want to make it clear the the nature centers are free to go to.
Right.
It's just if you want to do some programs or something there might be a small fee for some of those.
Thank you. Yep. Still very much free to go into and to learn and spend as much time as you want. But yeah, for programs, special events, things like that.
And all the parks are free to go to, and all the trails are free to use.
Everything.
Everything like that.
Yeah.
You've been director for 5 years, 6 years?
4.5.
4.5.
Yeah.
So a short period of time in that position out of a very long period of time in the Parks Department. This is going to be another loaded question for you, but
okay.
I don't think I make it too difficult. Is there anything that you had envisioned, whether during your time as a director or even just your tenure in the department, that you wish you could have seen done that just couldn't get accomplished?
Yeah, I think a nature center up north. Really wanted to see that develop and get completed. Definitely, I thought we would be finished with our asset inventory. It's just taken a while, and it's wise that we're doing it. We're taking our time. We're doing it right, but kind of wanted to see that get wrapped up. But both of those things are going to carry on without me, Bob, and I recognize that I'm a cog in the wheel, but there are a lot of cogs, and there's going to be a great person that comes in here and is going to take up that torch and take things to directions that I didn't envision. And so I'm confident that park professionals are the same across the country, and we're going to get somebody good in here that's going to bring it home.
And the county has advertised that position. They're looking for applicants nationwide, I assume. And
they are.
And they're looking for people out there. And there's great people in great parks all over the country. So
for sure.
I have faith that El Paso County probably pick somebody really, really well suited, hopefully good enough to fill your shoes when you leave. It's interesting because you talked about things you want to get done, but if you stayed till something got done, there'll be something else that came up that you want to get done. And eventually you have to decide, like I did when it was time for me to retire, like it just, you know what? I'm not going to get everything done here. Somebody else will take care of it. I'll get it started. Like you got started. The Northern Nature Center didn't get completed on your watch, but it got a hell of a start.
It did.
The next person in's got the blueprints, got the plans.
They do.
He just needs more money to make it happen. So he's got whoever comes in here, he or she's going to have the hard part, raising the money. But a lot of the work has already been done. So you have that legacy when you depart that's gonna be happening and be going along. We kind of missed one thing, and I want to make sure we don't forget about this. We talked about it before we started recording. Is you mentioned the Bear Creek Nature Center? Yeah. That's going on. That's coming up with a big anniversary this year.
It is. Yeah. The nation, Colorado, apparently have some anniversaries this year too. Yeah. So, but
250, 150, and 50, I guess. Now.
Yep. So Bear Creek Nature Center is celebrating its 50th year. It was the first nature center in Colorado, and I was proud to be part of that for decades. I was proud to be here during the time where it burned down and we got to rebuild. And the nature center is thriving, and they're going to be doing some really fun things this year to celebrate 50 years.
It's amazing that, we're going back 50 years. It's a long time. But it's amazing that was actually the first nature center in the state, that the state park system didn't have one yet, and none of the other. What a feather in the cap for the county that they set the pace, I guess, or set the example for other places to build nature centers.
Yeah. If you do some research on nature centers and look at some of the textbooks on how to do programming, how to do facilities, how to do exhibits, the Nature Center, Bear Creek Nature Center, is oftentimes featured in there, and did numerous interviews over my time here and helped out with other nature centers across the country. Great,
and a great staff that works there. I know the staff there. They're wonderful. Wonderful people there who work there, and that's where the terrain hopper program runs out of, and now it's going to run out of Fox Run, which I'm really excited about. That's outstanding. Todd, you've served a long time with the county park system. Is it correct to assume that your entire employment with the county has been in the park system?
It has, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, all 31 years. So
That's pretty impressive on its own.
Yeah. It doesn't happen a whole lot anymore. So, it was just enough for me to advance and do different things throughout my career, and new challenges and new opportunities, new leadership over the years, different leadership styles and how things went. And the thing that stayed consistent is my passion for the outdoors and for the mission that we do. The nature centers are wonderful. The parks, what they do for our community is huge, and what the county fair does for Eastern El Paso County and our residents, I'm very proud of that too. And so all of those things combined, it's been a great ride.
The fair out there is awesome. It's a lot of fun to go out to. Well, Todd, anything that you want to tell us about that maybe I forgot to ask you?
I don't think so. I think I look forward to seeing a lot of you guys and maybe even you, Bob, out on the trails.
Well, anytime you want to go for a hike, you give me a call. I'll be happy to go out there with you. It would be a blast to spend some time on the trails. You and I mostly spend our time like we do now across the desk at a meeting, something like that. It's amazing how many people I know in the park system that I don't actually get to spend time in the parks with, because they're largely administrative people and they're behind desk. And I know the first thing they say is, I need to get out more.
Now I will be getting out more.
That's awesome. That's great. I can't help but thank you for your very long tenure. It's almost unheard of for people to spend so much time and devotion and dedication to one agency and see it from being an interpretive staff to working your way up to directing the park for the last 4.5 years, directing the park system, that I can't thank you enough for your dedication to it. I mean, as long as I've been in this county, you've been the guy who's been, involved in the park system. So for me, as a resident and somebody who enjoys the parks, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I wish you well on your vacation, retirement. It's maybe nothing but vacation, trust me. And reach out if you got any questions. We were kind of talking before this about how retirement goes, and I have a few insights, but you're going to talk to a lot of really great people. We're going to have all kinds of suggestions for you. My suggestion is take all their suggestions in, distill them down into what works best for you, and go out and enjoy yourself. And you're retiring about the same age I was when I retired, so that's a good age to retire at, and it works well for you. So
thank you.
Thank you again for your time.
Thanks, Bob.
With El Paso County, your dedication as director and all the stuff you did working your way up here, it really shows so many places just don't have that longevity anymore. And I'm so happy to see that you've done that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It means a lot.
And it's been great knowing you as professionally as we've worked together over the years and doing stuff. Todd, thanks again. Pleasure knowing you, and not that you're going anywhere, but you're going to be in the area. We're going
to be hiking. We're going to be hiking. Yeah.
But thanks for your work here, and everyone. Thanks for listening to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. We'll talk to you next time.